take information usually that you tell them. Say you tell a stranger, my parents are so horrible, I hate them, I want to leave. Somebody who's trying to groom you is going to tell you that you're right.
Say that again, because we just had an incident like that. I don't think they caught it. You might want to, can you come a little closer, because I don't want to hear that. It's very important what you just said.
Okay, somebody who's trying to groom you, if you tell them, hey, my parents are so horrible, I want to leave, I want to get out of here, I don't want to be in my school anymore, they're going to tell you, you're right. You shouldn't have to go through that. You shouldn't have to deal with that. Your parents shouldn't treat you like that. Which, most of the time, I've been your age, your parents aren't really being that horrible, they're just trying to be your parent. And I'm not going to repeat everything that they said because they made a pretty good point. But my story, I used Twitter, wasn't looking for anybody, and I don't think that this person was necessarily looking for me. But I had tweeted something out, they replied, and that's how we started talking. Well, at the time, I was going through some stuff at home. Thought my parents were such horrible people. I wanted to leave, I wanted to get out. And eventually, after about a year or so of talking to this person, I knew that if I said, hey, come get me, I want to leave, that they would come and get me. No questions asked. So, at the time, this person was, I believe, engaged to a young lady who was 21. And I didn't know this, but of course, this person was a stranger. They didn't tell me much about them, what they had gone through. They didn't really care to share their information with me. So, fast forward about a year and a half later, I was going through some stuff. I wanted to leave home, and I was like, my parents don't care. Well, I had that mindset, I'm going to show them. So, I told this person, I said, come and get me, I want to leave. I can't do this anymore, I don't want to be here. And the next day, they came and picked me up from school. Now, do any of y'all know how far Illinois is from Virginia?
100 something.
Give or take. They drove overnight, picked me up. I got out of school at about 2:30. They were here by the time I got out of school. So they drove here overnight. No questions asked. Told his fiance he was going to the grocery store. So I can imagine that if you guys have a fiance and they say, oh, I'm going to the grocery store, and 10 hours later they're not back, y'all are gonna have some questions, right? Like, where are you? What are you doing? So she called. He told her that he had to come to Virginia because his grandmother was sick. Well, his grandmother, I'm pretty sure, is not alive, so that was a lie. Anyway, he got here, I got in the car, we took off. We went from Christiansburg, Virginia, which is about 30 minutes away from here. The first place we went was North Carolina. Stopped there, slept in a hotel, all that good stuff. And by the time we left the next morning, my mom, being the mom that she is, knew that I was with this person because she knew that I had been talking to them prior to leaving. So I usually got home about 3 o'clock, give or take, and my dad was there waiting for me to get home. I never showed up. So he called my mom, was like, hey, Angel's not here, I don't know what's going on. My mom had taken my phone. That's how she knew that I was talking to this person. So, like I said, she already knew who I was with. She called the police. They did their magic, and by the time that we were leaving the hotel the next morning in North Carolina, the police already knew where we were, and they were right behind us.
And I knew where she was.
So, we leave North Carolina, we drive. We end up in Tennessee, which is where this person is from. He goes to one of his friend's house. They didn't know what was going on. He just called and was like, hey, can I come to your house, pretty much. So we got there, he told that person what was going on, and the guy was like, you're my friend, I'm not gonna say anything, but you need to do what's right. And so at this time, I was 16. I think I forgot to mention that, but I was 16. So we left left Tennessee. I'm sure by that time the police were there too. We ended up in Arkansas, which is where he had another friend. We got to his friend's house, we stayed there. And so by this time, I'm sure y'all can imagine, social media, thanks to Kenny, was blown up with information about me, the basics of what had happened. And I got online while we were at his friend's house, Googled myself, because at this point, I think people were blowing up his phone too, because they had figured out what was going on. So they were blowing up his phone. I got on Google, just searched my name, and there was a page of, I don't know how many articles saying that I was missing. And like I said, he didn't tell me much information about him. So I'm sure you guys can imagine when you get online and you think, oh, I'm with this person who cares about me, they just want to help me. You get online and you see stories about how he was arrested for child molestation. Turns out that the child that he was arrested for those charges for was his own daughter. I knew that him and his ex-wife had split up. He didn't have custody of his daughter or anything like that. So I was kind of, I think, oblivious because I just wanted to get away from home so bad because I thought that my parents were so bad that I didn't really care. But that night, when I got online and I saw that, I logged onto my Facebook. And I'm sure you guys can imagine I had messages after messages after messages. So instead of messaging my mom, the person that I was so mad at, I messaged my uncle's ex-girlfriend, who I was still close with. I guess she was in contact with either my parents or the cops herself. I'm not sure. Kenny would know. But they were able to get my location from where I was. At this point, I didn't tell this person, hey, I'm going to walk out the door and I'm going with the cops and I'm leaving. And whatever happens to you is, whatever happens. So I logged off, told them where I was. They sent the cops, at this point, because they didn't know what was going on, what could happen to me. They didn't make a big deal. They didn't come, banging on the door or anything like that. But I just walked outside and there was a patrol car sitting out there. And I got in, and as I was walking out of the door, he said, "Are you leaving already?" I just didn't say anything. I walked out. There, I met the cops, and they went in and got him, and pretty much the story, the exciting part, is over at that point. I went to I'm not really sure what you guys, or what they call it, kind of like a house for kids who were in this similar situation. I stayed there overnight, and my parents were to come and get me. So they started driving there. We're still in Arkansas at this point. And I forgot to mention that the U.S. Marshals were involved with finding me. Police departments around the world, or the nation, should I say, were involved. And so it was a pretty big deal. To me, it was kind of like, yeah, I did this, they're coming to get me, whatever. But it was a pretty big deal, and I realize that now, being 19 and having to pay for what I did. So they sent me to this place. My parents were going to come get me, and they couldn't tell me or tell anybody where I was going, because at this point there were news stations from Georgia, all the way down in Georgia, that were flying to Arkansas just to be able to have my face on their cameras and be able to tell my story. So I'm sure, as you can imagine, no family wants to deal with news reporters the day that they go and find their missing daughter. So my parents came and got me. They brought my best friend and my uncle and my older brother. And so we were driving back. I got back, and I had to go meet with a investigator from my local police department. So I got there, and it was sure it was Super Bowl Sunday of that year. I was going to go to church, and it was going to be a normal day, but I had to go meet with this investigator. And I did that, and, you know, they asked me, are you going to run away again? You know, stuff, all the routine questions. And I was like, no. I was like, I just kind of want to be left alone. Well, of course, being a 16-year-old, they're probably not going to take my word for that. So they go and talk to my parents after they finish talking to me, and she comes back in and she says, well, we have a temporary detainment order, I think it's what it's called, which basically means that I had to go to a mental hospital. And that's where I was supposed to get care, because you hear that story, y'all might think, okay, she was mad at her parents, she just wanted to get out. Usually when something like this happens, there's an underlying cause as to why somebody feels so strongly about leaving their household with parents who care about them, no matter how mean y'all think they may be. There's usually an underlying cause. So that's where I was to go figure out, you know, what was going on. I go there for a couple of weeks. I think that I'm going to go home at the end of this, and no. I had to go to another facility that I lived in for 3 months. And it was like jail, pretty much. You wake up at a certain time, you eat at a certain time, you have activities that you have to do, you go to bed at a certain time, you do it all over. Not to mention you have school in between all that. So, I mean, how many of you guys are honor roll students? Anybody? Okay. Well,
Honor roll? Any honor roll students in here? Got quite a few of you.
I have always been an honor roll student. School has not been hard for me. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because you can be the best student in the world, be, you know, the best student athlete in the world, whatever. It doesn't mean that problems aren't going to come your way. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have to deal with those problems. School wasn't a cause of me feeling this way or doing what I did, but I just gone through some things years prior to this, and I didn't deal with them in the right way because I was a teenager. I didn't want to go talk to some stupid counselor about my feelings, basically. So it never got dealt with. Now, I say that because I don't know what you guys have gone through. I don't know what you're going to go through, but I do know that you can't try to sneak your way out of dealing with things. And I think usually that's where these type of events come from, is you don't want to deal with, you know, what's going on at home. But I'm sure most of you guys know, I don't know if all these people in here are volunteers or employed by the school.
All of them employees.
Okay. If you guys are going through something, every adult in here is a mandated reporter, which means that if you tell them something that falls under any type of abuse, you know, neglect, abandonment, anything like that, they have to report that. Now, I might think, okay, well, my parents say what goes on in my house is my business. Well, I mean, that might be true to some extent, but when it comes to children being abused or neglected, it doesn't just stay their business at that point. So if you guys have a teacher that you can go to, that you can tell, hey, this is what's going on, you know, I need help, or I think that this is what's not supposed to be going on, you know, they have to tell that. They have to go report it, and eventually, usually right away, in the school's case, somebody will be sent to talk to you. Usually, I think they do it at the school so that you don't have to go home and talk to your parents, you know, about.
Y'all know we can lose our job. If you guys tell us something that's very confidential such as that, we have to report it ASAP, and we can possibly lose our job. I know Ms. Dupree, she can lose her license. I know I can lose my license or lose my job, period. So it's not that we're snitching on you, but we're very concerned, and we try to get you the help that you need, and hopefully somebody can resolve whatever issue that you may have. We had an incident last week, and most of the sixth graders know of a situation, and I can't really go into detail, and she mentioned it, where you think your parents are the most horrible people in the world, you're not getting your way and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to go into detail because a lot of you know who I'm talking about. But that young lady is not where she probably should be right now because of some of the things that happened. And one of the reasons why the Awareness Foundation and Mr. Kenny is here is to make y'all aware of a lot of things that sometimes y'all take for granted or just not aware of. It's just from lack of knowledge.
So yeah, they're mandated reporters, which basically means that they have to go, they have to make a report. Do you guys have a school resource officer?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
same thing. Usually an actual police officer who is gonna have to go and make a report. If you feel more comfortable talking to, somebody that's a part of law enforcement, then do that. I think that would probably make me feel a lot more comfortable too than just going and, in a teenager's mind saying, well, this is just a teacher, what can they do? You might feel more comfortable talking to a cop, you might not. But
Hey Kenny, excuse me for interrupting. They don't know this, but in high school, it's 5 undercover cops that strolls through the school, and they never get exposed throughout the year, PH or Fleming. They're not so much in the middle school because we have cameras and we keep our kids, we keep a close surveillance, and we have enough adults here in the building.
Right.
But all of the high schools where you got 2,000 plus kids, PH and Fleming have, for y'all high schools will be next year, you got 5 undercover cops that you'll never know who they are. And at Forest Park is 2, and North Seatel is 2. You'll never know who they are, and I can't expose them because I can lose my job. But they have to stay undercover for the protection of you guys.
So, I know I told y'all that I had gone through some things before, this whole incident happened. And y'all might think, well, how did you have a cell phone again in the first place? Well, I know y'all aren't dumb. I know I'm not dumb. Y'all want to find a way around a rule that's going to be done. And that's what happened. That's how, instead of appreciating the fact that my parents wanted to keep me safe, I, snuck around their rule, did what I had to do to get in contact with this person. I didn't have a smartphone. I had one of those little phones that you just text off of and call. That's it. I didn't have a smartphone. But my little brother, he's 9. He had a tablet. On a tablet, you can do basically the same thing you can on a smartphone. So that's what I used, and I used that phone. My mom actually knew that I'd gotten in contact with this person the night before I left. She took, everything away, and by this point, I'd already told him, hey, come and get me. So she didn't know that, but yeah, there's that. And so I just want to kind of reiterate what they just said about, social media. Not every person on social media, every adult that comes in contact with you is a sexual predator. That's not, what we're trying to tell you guys at all. But do be, knowledgeable about the fact that there are people out there whose intent is to take advantage of people, regardless of age, regardless of, gender, race, whatever. There are people out there who have no intentions in this world but to hurt other people. As horrible as it may sound. And I don't think that this person wanted to, necessarily hurt me or anything like that. I think it was kind of more having me in their grasp was comforting for them. And that goes back to grooming and sexual exploitation. People do these things for their own satisfaction. Somebody's not going to go and start a child sex trafficking ring if they're not going to make money off of it. That's just, that's what it is. They're doing these things because they get some type of profit or, they get something out of it. And like I said, not every person you come in contact with is a sexual predator, but they are out there. And usually it's somebody that you know that's gonna try to take advantage of you. A lot of the times when you hear about people who have been raped or molested, it's by somebody that they know. Because it's a lot easier to, if I know your parents, I know where y'all live, I know a lot of your other immediate family members, it's a lot easier for me to, get control of your feelings, which goes back to, just the whole validation of feelings type thing. If y'all are going through something, how often do you just want to hear, you're right. Anybody? If y'all are ever going through something, you just want to hear you're right, you know. You're allowed to feel this way. And that's what they're gonna do. That's how they, you know, take control of you. They want you to become submissive to the things that they say. And usually, I just want y'all to know this. Now I know that your parents aren't horrible people. Your parents, they just want to keep you safe. At least I would hope. So when you get grounded for doing something wrong that you might think is right, don't argue, because 9 times out of 10 your parents have done the same thing that you're doing, or they have more knowledge about it than you do, and they're just trying to, you know, help you not make the same mistakes that they did. How many of y'all have seen the show Teen Mom?
Stop watching that show.
How many of y'all's parents were teen parents? Do y'all know? Okay. So, if you're a young girl messaging guys who are 2+ years older than you, who are just interested in sex, 9 times out of 10, your parents are going to cut that off, because they don't want you to have to go through the same things that they did as a teen parent, because it's not easy. You're not going to get paid for becoming a teen mom, so it's not worth it. It's not worth putting yourself through a situation like that and putting somebody else, aka a child, into an environment that's not stable. I don't want to lecture y'all anymore, so I just hope that y'all, you know, understood my story, learned something from it, and that y'all hopefully go delete Kick off of your phone. Snapchat, I know Snapchat is not as bad, but recently I know that it's happened to me. I've had fake profiles message me on Snapchat and stuff, so just kind of be aware, like they said, of the people who are adding you on Facebook and stuff, and just, you don't necessarily have to go tell your parents every time something happens. If you know that this person is not somebody that your parents would want you to be in contact with, or that they have intentions that are not going to help you, just block them, just delete them. Don't even engage in conversation. And I'm sure that your parents, even if you don't tell them, would appreciate the fact that you know to just delete this person, get rid of them, change your profile settings and all that. So I hope that y'all took something from this, and that we kind of prevented anything from happening if anything was going on.